Hi there, this is Steve Spurrier. You can join University of Florida Hall of Famer Shane Matthews and also the two-time SEC Player of the Year every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about the Florida Gators, including news, analysis, opinions, and some of the biggest names in sports. You can find him on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Or you can watch him live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter.
Welcome again to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning, coming to you live from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, a.k.a. my house. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. I am Jake Hitt. I'm filling in for Shane today. Shane was gone yesterday for XFL duties. And then today, I believe he has a nice golf tournament with Danny Werfel. So I'm assuming it is. He just told me he had an event. So, like I said, I'm Jake Hitt filling in for him. We're joined by the one and only JC, Johnny Boy Cornell, and then we'll have Jacob Rudner of 24/7 Sports on later. But how you doing, JC?
All right, man. Good to be back with you, Jake. How's life going, dude? You got that beard all rolled up. Everything looks good. You got the Tampa Bay Rays hat. I mean, this is you right here, man. Where's your Florida Gator stuff, man? It's Florida-Georgia weekend. What's going on?
I'm not trying to get in on that. I'm trying to stay impartial. Now, I am coming to you live from what used to be my high school bedroom, which is literally like the walls are all Gator stuff and Gator colors.
Yeah.
Because that's where I wanted to go to school when I was in high school.
I got you. Well, I tell you, we got some news, dude, about this recruit from Lakeland, and we all thought he wanted to go to Florida. And he's a 5-star cornerback. And Lakeland's a hotbed of recruiting, as we know. And many good players come to Florida from Lakeland. And so what does the guy do, Jay?
He goes to Miami.
Why? Yeah, hell yeah. Let's just go to Miami. I mean, you know, their money can spend down there. I don't get it, dude. I mean, you look at that place down there, you got 15 people that show up to the games. You got to drive 45 minutes from campus to get to the stadium. You got no atmosphere. You're losing to Middle Tennessee State. You're losing – who the hell beat them last week? Duke blew them out. And you go, yes, that's where I'm going to spend my college career so I can go to the U, and I can go be a Miami Hurricane. And they suck. And yet you're going to pass on Florida that's got nothing but upside. I guess they just paid him more. What do you think happened, Jake? What's the kid's name again?
Cormani McClain. They call him Money
Cormani McClain. There you go. Quarterback. Big time.
I don't know what it is. You know, the guy who was his primary, according to 24/7, his primary was DeMarcus Van Dyke. He used to work in Georgia, and his recruit list has a ton of kids from the 2021 class on it. Guys like Julian Humphrey, a couple dudes when he worked at Georgia. So, I mean, you just wonder if that's the logo or how good he is. But this had some really big names. It had him. It had Travaris Robinson was his secondary from Alabama recruiting him, and then he had Corey Raymond. But it's just weird to think that if he didn't pick Florida, you would have thought, oh, he's going to Alabama. Because, I mean, Travaris Robinson, and they have, you know, a great history with DBs there. And he just ups and goes to Miami. They must have told him something or said that they got something in the works. But it's not unheard of for bad teams to get good recruits. I mean, look at Florida.
I know. I see that. And I know Mario is trying to build something down there. And you know, he can tell a good story just as good as anybody. But this guy was locked in for Florida. And I don't want to – listen, it's just a verbal commitment. Things can change dramatically, although we're not that far from the early signing period in December. And certainly anything can happen between now and then. But my goodness, that was a tough blow there. And then tomorrow you've got this game in Jacksonville, right? And everybody gets all wound up about it. And we've talked about the game moving from Jacksonville to a home and home scenario. And like I was telling QB on Wednesday, Jake, you know, Florida is free to play their home game wherever they want to when this contract's over. But Georgia is not going to do it anymore. And I don't think, and I've heard folks say, yeah, this is all about money. To me, that's somewhat secondary. It's secondary because money is not going to be an issue on anything when this new TV contract comes out. $3 million here, $2 million there. Listen, they're going to do fine playing at home and home. And to Kirby Smart, the $2 or $3 million extra dollars, whatever the case may be, and I'm not saying that's not important, but when you're getting 90 or 85 million from a TV contract that's about to be signed by your commissioner, well, at that point, I think he's thinking broadly, more broadly. And that means Kirby wants to play this game at home so he can have recruits, period. That's it. That's the story. And Georgia has the right to do that once the contract is over. Florida can play the game in Jacksonville if they want to, but they won't. And, I think if you don't go to this game today or whenever the next one is, the last one is, which is either next year or the year after, then you may not see the Florida-Georgia game in Jacksonville anymore. And that's because Georgia doesn't want to play it there. And I don't think money has anything to do with it in terms of whether or not they play this game here. Kirby Smart wants to play this game at Athens. Kirby Smart has carte blanche to do whatever he wants with that football program, just like Nick Saban. Just like Nick Saban, the president and the athletic director will rubber stamp whatever Kirby Smart wants. Therefore, Kirby Smart wants this game in Athens, and that's where it's going to be played when they have it as a home game. So that's the way I think it's going to fall. So if you're not going tomorrow, or I guess it's next year maybe, when does the contract expire, Jake? You know when the contract expires? Well, let's just say it's next year. It might be next year or the year after. What's that? What?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm looking right now.
Okay, so let's say it's next year or year after. That's, to me, that's going to be it for Jacksonville. And I know they're trying to build the area. I've been hearing that for 10 years. Trying to, Shad Khan's going to put money into the river area down there and make it just this, that, and the other. Well, they've been talking about that for about 10 years now. So at any rate, it'll happen, but the game's going to move. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah, they agreed to a contract extension 3 years ago to put it through 2025.
So we've got through 2025, so there could be three more games. All right, so why are we even talking about it now? I mean, anything can happen. I mean, Kirby Smart might not even be at Georgia in 3 years. So
yeah, it could be in the NFL.
Right, and this is all about Kirby Smart's needs and wants and wishes, and that's why we're even talking about it, which I shouldn't be if it's going to be three more games after this. So you still have time, fans, to go watch the spectacle in Jacksonville.
Yeah, we get a couple comments already about Colmani McClain talking about how it's probably an NIL deal that got him there. John Ruiz, the super booster, is who I was referring to when we were talking off the air. So it could be anything. But I do have something from Brett here. Yesterday on the show, we had Brent Baird on. He said college football playoff will be the best thing to ever happen to the game, and the conference championship games would be Thanksgiving weekend. What are your thoughts on that, JC? Like a year like this, the game in Atlanta would be irrelevant with an expanded playoff.
Jake, I thought that they might consider integrating the championship games into the playoff in some form or fashion, but when you're making it a 12-team situation, my feelings are that is good for college football because, and this year we could really see a scenario where you've got a host of one-loss teams, many different, say, one-loss teams that will not be in the Final Four that could make a case. If Oregon wins the Pac-12, I know they had a bad day against Georgia on opening day, but let's say they win the rest of their games. They go 11-1, which is very likely or possible, I should say. They would have a case. Let's say the winner of the Pac-12 has a loss. The Big 12 has a loss or is unbeaten and they don't get it. I mean, that would be terrible, right? So we have to have expanded playoffs. The problem for it, to me, though, is that they have to try to make it. Blew them out. What was that? They have to try to. What?
That was me trying to get the Facebook Live comments in a different
Well,
spot.
They have to do it before, the end of 2026. So we're again, here we are talking about something that's so far away. I can't even conceive why it's an issue. I think college football is just begging to try to figure out a way to get this thing to happen well before 2026. But I don't see that happening with the current TV contract unless the networks and the college football presidents get together and make it happen. That's the only way it can happen. The current contract for the 14 playoff goes this year, it goes next year, it goes the year after that, and then it goes the year after that. I mean, I'm going to be 4 years older than I am today. You are too. Everybody is.
I'll be pushing 30 when that happens. Which is
My God, you're going to be so old, Jake. I mean, you're going
to just go on the ground now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love the idea. I think it's a great concept. And we're talking about something that's 48 to 60 months away. A big deal. I mean, it's just irrelevant to me until we get to it, or at least have a date like, in 2024. We'll play one more season. We'll get Oklahoma and Texas over here, and we'll get this damn thing going in 2024. We have spent so much time talking about something that's so far away that I think it's college football's way of trying to stay relevant, as the NFL makes 10 times more money than college football does on its television deals and everything else they do. And let me ask you, Jake, did you like that Tennessee-Alabama game? Did you like it?
Great game.
Yeah. Was it better than the Kansas City-Buffalo game? Yeah. And so, I mean, it's just college football's got to get their what together. I don't think it has it.
Yeah, I just think it's still relevant just because they're just meeting about it. So people are reporting on their meeting about it, and we just, just something to report on. People just
that's great. That's great. But then we get to go watch Georgia play Kent State. We get to go watch, these trash games that I know it's great for these little tiny schools to make their budgets, but that's not what season ticket holders at Auburn or Alabama are supposed to do, and that is subsidize Kent State's football budget. So to me, when we get rid of these ridiculous subsidy games, and QB completely disagrees with me, but it's the truth, dude. Nobody likes these games. Nobody likes to watch them. And so, I'm just ready for it to happen now, and I'm just not patient. I'm not patient, Jake. I'm not patient in my old age.
You don't seem very patient today. You seem a little amped up. You all right, JC?
Yeah. I got the V8 energy drink going. I'm at the beach, the salty air. That's got to be what it is.
Oh, you know what it is? You were not drinking a V8. Someone booped you on the head and said you should have had a V8. So now you're angry that you got hit in the head.
Well, it's a V8 energy drink, dude. That's pretty good stuff. You should try it out. Go to Publix and pick up a 6-pack.
All right. You know what? You should try out, JC, Dorian Wiebe. Are you in the market to buy or sell your home? Dorian Wiebe, a realtor with Coldwell Banker MM Parrish, will provide you with fast, friendly, and reliable service. Call her today at 352-562-1411. I'm here with Johnny Cornell. I'm Jake Hitt. We'll have Jacob Rudner here in the next 15 minutes or so. He works for 24/7 Sports. But, JC, going back to that Coal Mining McLean deal with him going, now Florida, they're going to have to move on. They'll target a guy, Desmond Ricks, at IMG, which they have no problem getting IMG DBs. If you look at a guy like Kamari Wilson, it's not like the class was bad before McLean decided to go to Miami. They still have, several guys. They even have at least, 3 defensive backs in their recruiting class now. It's just another part where there's this elite guy, highly touted guy, not like, oh, he's a good player, he's a decent player. It's like, no, this dude could very well be an elite player for you, and you whiff on him. You miss out on him again.
Slips right through the fingers. Well, and again, we're trying to figure out his thinking, and most people would agree that it's probably got some sort of financial backing behind it. So the question then remains, will Florida have to step up in that area so as not to possibly lose these, team-changing players, if that's what he is? I mean, that's what we hear, that he's that good, but I don't know if he is. Maybe he is. He probably is. But, dude, I mean, if there's a reason why Florida's missing out on these guys, then let's talk about what to do about that so that the next Komani McLean doesn't disappear and poof into the wilderness. So.
Yeah. You thought that there would be maybe some turnaround with a guy like Hugh Hathcock, getting involved. It just hasn't happened yet. And for some reason, Florida's got a spending problem when it comes to boosters.
I think Florida's had a spending problem when it comes to football for about, I don't know, 25 years before they finally figured it out here in the last 2 years. So, you can be cheap if you want to be, but people are going to run by you, okay? And that's what's happened to the Florida football program in the last 13 years. Other schools have just run by them. And mediocrity then sets in. You get average players, you get coaching turnover, and you have chaos and instability. And that's what's happened in the last 13 years around here. So you either address the issue, you try to figure out how to make it compatible, how to make it practical, and you fight on and go fight it. The way it is today is different than it's been, and either you conform or you fall behind. And Florida fell behind when it came to facilities. And now is Florida going to fall behind when it comes to spending? And I don't know the answer there because it's not really a Florida issue. It's a outside external issue. And so that means Florida's got to do a better job selling. This is a sales job. It's all about sales. It's always been that. I've talked about this for years. It's a sales job. And you got to figure out how to attract both money and players.
Yeah. And you know what else does a lot of sales? Celebration points where Gators come to celebrate. With premium brands like the Keys Bar and Grill, Medici's, Regal Cinemas, Dave & Buster's, Nike, La Macaron, the Gadget Guys, and the HBC's Restaurant Spurs Gridiron Grill. Now selling Head Beer Coach American Lager in 16-ounce cans. Get them while they're hot, JC.
I like
Spurrier. You like them? I haven't had one yet.
I had some of that stuff. Coach knows his blend. He knows what he likes. I've had a beer with him a couple times in the past, and it's a certain light type of easy lager drinking beer. That's his deal. And it's a good one. I like it.
Is he a Michelob guy? Is he a Budweiser guy?
He was, at one point he was a Coors Light guy, and then he kind of dilly-dallied with some other light beers, but I think Coors Light was his go-to. But this thing he's got cooking right now is pretty good. And it's I can drink it at the Hawkstone Country Club. You can drink it, obviously, at the restaurant and at the games. So tomorrow, Florida's the road team. I don't know what they're selling. I'm not sure that'll be available, but when you get a chance, try it out. I will. It gets my endorsement there, Jake.
Good. I might. Well, if it's got your seal of approval, JC, I think I'd be obligated to try it.
Thank you. Okay. I mean, 16-ounce cans too. You gotta love that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the world's going to tall boys. What can I say? This is a beer show. If anybody didn't know, we don't talk sports here. We talk about beer.
Well, beer is included in sports, right? I mean, isn't that part of it?
Yeah, exactly. So, JC, look, you've been going to this game for a while. You know probably as much about anybody about this game. God, there's a terrible sentence. But, you know a lot about this game. I've seen that there's not much interest on the Florida side here this year round.
I mean, we're in these streaky situations. This series is so streaky, and right now Georgia's got the upper hand. But let me bring you back to 1997 when Florida was a 21-point favorite, and Coach Spurrier was the glam of all the TV people, and he was the belle of the ball in college football. And Jim Donnan beat him pretty good in 97. But that was rare and few and far between because Coach Spurrier dominated the Georgia series. But before that, Georgia dominated the Florida series to them. So one of my favorite moments in this game was in the old Gator Bowl before it was redone. And Florida had a linebacker named Tim Polk, and they had Godfrey Miles. They were nasty. This is one of the nastiest defenses. Tim Polk picks off a pass, runs it in the end zone, grips the ball with one hand, holds it like he's holding it like it's a beer can, and he's just running down the field after he picks off the pass to score a touchdown for a pick six. And the place went crazy. And that was in the old Gator Bowl. And I was on the sideline. He came right at me. And I'll just never forget the image and the scene. And so, of course, both schools have these moments where just unforgettable moments. That was one of them for me. But I've been to so many of these damn games. It gets to where a lot of things that you expect to happen don't necessarily happen. But last year, Georgia, took care of business once Florida turned the ball over. And in this case, Florida's going to have to play nearly a perfect game, in my mind, to stay close.
Well, and turnovers have been an issue for this team, throughout the year. So you gotta wonder, pretty basic question: is the trend going to continue, or are you going to snap it? And that goes along the lines of what you're saying. They got to play a perfect game if they want to keep the ball out of this. I can't believe I'm saying this explosive Georgia offense with Stetson Bennett.
Well, QB says they're better this year than last. I don't know if it's that obvious to me. They're just good. And defensively, I think they're almost as good as they were last year, in my opinion. Jake, we got about 10 minutes or so. You want to get on these picks, the Peachland Dental picks?
Yes, I can tell you about Peachland Dentistry beforehand. Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Visit them at peachlanddental.com and join us today. We're doing it right now. JC and QB weekend picks.
All right, Jake, you're going to get in here too. I'm going to put your name by these games, and we're going to see if you can beat the experts. I'm up on the QB. I don't know what the season series is at this point, but I'm ahead of them. We're going to start with Penn State and Ohio State. The old Pennsylvania State Nittany Lions playing the Buckeyes, getting 14.5 at home. Shane is going with Ohio State. I'm going to take the home dog, getting 14.5.
Yeah, give me Ryan Day and the Buckeyes. This offense is way too good, and Penn State's just too inconsistent.
Understand. All right, here's a game, upstate New York at home. Syracuse, who forgot their best player last week against Clemson and forgot to give him the ball, even though he had an 11-yard average running it. Syracuse, though, is still in the picture. They get Notre Dame, and they're laying 2.5. And to me, that's just an easy one. I'm taking Syracuse.
Yeah, I'm taking the orange too. I don't think Dino makes the same mistake twice.
How you can't give that kid the ball over and QB took Syracuse as well. Oklahoma State and Kansas State. Kansas State had some quarterback issues last week. It's too bad. They had TCU where they needed him. They'll probably end up playing TCU again in all likelihood in the conference championship, or could it be Oklahoma State? This game is a +1 and a 1.5 going to Oklahoma State, and it's at Manhattan, Kansas. Who do you like?
I'll take the Wildcats. I like Deuce Vaughn, and Oklahoma State has played close games the last several weeks.
I'm a Spencer Sanders guy. I like K-State. I like both these teams. I think they're both terrific. They're fun to watch, but I'm going to take Spencer Sanders and Oklahoma State getting 1.5 on the road in Manhattan, because I'm not sure what the Kansas State quarterback situation is like with Martinez possibly not playing again. Nobody's saying anything. And the backup got pretty banged up last week. Baylor is getting 2.5 at Texas Tech. This is in Lubbock. Baylor had a nice win last week, but the Red Raiders at home are really tough to deal with, and I'm going to take them. Who you got?
God, this is like picking, who's going to win, St. John's or Rutgers. I know nothing about either of these.
Come on, Jet, you're a college football guy, bro. Baylor is the Big 12 champions.
I'm going to have to go. Well, I know Baylor. I'm going to have to go with Dave Aranda. I just haven't seen enough of both teams.
I hear you. I'm going to take Texas Tech. QB's got Texas Tech. All right, here's one for you. This looks like your kind of game here. Michigan State +23 at Michigan.
Jesus God. How bad is
It's a bad game. Dude, you got to pick the spread. You got to pick the spread.
Give me points. Give me Michigan in the point.
Yeah, no, Michigan's laying the points, Jake.
Oh, I'm sorry. Give me Michigan.
You want Michigan. So does QB. I take the points at 23 with Michigan State. TCU -7, West Virginia. Who you got? At West Virginia.
I like the Horned Frogs. I don't think Neil Brown's the guy
I don't either. For some reason, QB's got West Virginia. He likes the home dog here. Florida State is laying 24 to Georgia Tech.
I don't know, man. I'll take Georgia Tech to cover.
It's killing you, dude. 24. Okay, so Shane's got Georgia Tech. I got FSU. Okay, SEC. You'll get these. All right, here we go. You ready? Arkansas. Jake, my SEC guy. Arkansas laying 3.5 at Auburn. The Pigs. What do you think?
Pigs at noon. The Pigs at noon.
Yeah.
Give me J.J. Jefferson and the Razorbacks.
Yeah, I said before the season, Auburn was chaos, and they are chaos. Take Arkansas.
We're just counting down the days till Brian Harsin gets fired.
That's right. They're chaos. Take Arkansas late at 3.5. Poor Auburn, but they do it to themselves. You can't have. There's no sympathy for a school that is as bad self-inflicting itself in the head than Auburn. They are just dysfunctional. Missouri plus 3.5 in South Carolina. Now, South Carolina has had trouble with Missouri. South Carolina does not beat Missouri for whatever reason. But they're the favorite at home. And I love what Shane Beamer's got. They lost last year to Missouri. This year they beat Missouri, and they win by a touchdown. That's what I got.
It's crazy how the Gamecocks are 5-2, and Spencer Rattler is like bottom third in touchdown passes in the league. Go ahead.
No, finish your thought. Well,
I'll go with South Carolina because that just means Beamer's just finding ways to win ball games. It seems.
I hear you. Shane went with Missouri. He's going with the trend. That's a trend play. South Carolina is this guy could be the coach of the year. Kentucky plus 12.5 at Tennessee. Rocky Top.
Oh my God.
Rocky Top.
This might be the biggest polar opposite between ball clubs. In terms of Tennessee likes to just throw it 15 yards down the field, and Jalen Hyatt beats everybody else, and Kentucky is just going to run Chris Rodriguez into a brick wall until that thing finally breaks. I don't think Kentucky's got the horses to keep up with Tennessee. I'll take Tennessee.
Both of us have Kentucky, and you're going to take Tennessee and probably beat us. Finally, we've got this thriller in College Station, Mississippi getting two, if you can believe it. They're actually getting points from the worst offense I've seen in this conference and since, I guess, one of Vanderbilt's years or even Florida's years in the early 2014-15 time frame when they couldn't get a first down. So, A&M is laying two. I'm going to take Mississippi just because I'm not a John James Fisher fan. I think he's an overrated loudmouth. And he's overpaid and steals money. So give me Mississippi.
Yeah, I'll take the Rebels. I don't think the defense has another bad week, especially playing Connor Weigman and the Aggies.
Yeah. QB's got the Aggies, his beloved Aggies. His beloved LSU Tigers are not playing this weekend, so we'll wait on that. Next weekend we've got Tennessee and Georgia, followed by Alabama and LSU. Finally, you got a score on that Florida game?
I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with 31-10. How about that?
I'm gonna go with 38. Yeah, 31-10 Georgia. I'm gonna take Georgia 38-17. That means Florida covers the line. Take the points and the Gators. Take the points. Yeah. And then I've got 3 NFL games. You want me to do those, or you want to move on?
Let's do it.
Okay. Steelers.
I'm not gambling with money that doesn't exist.
Good. Steelers plus 10 at Philadelphia.
Give me Finley.
Woo! Eagles. All right. QB's taking the Steelers with the points. I've got the Eagles with you. Niners laying 1.5 at Los Angeles.
1.5 at LA. Oh gosh. Give me I'll take the Niners because the Rams are just not good on offense, and the Niners shut them down last time.
The Niners have their number, but I have to go with my beloved Rams. And finally, the Dolphins are laying 3.5. Your team, the Miami Dolphins, laying 3.5 at Detroit. DeAndre Swift.
I'll take the Lions.
Okay, I will too. And DeAndre Swift is back in this game, and I just don't trust Tua to stay healthy through 4 quarters. Even though he made it last week, I just don't know. Yeah, I
can't wait for all these picks to just blow up in my face. I'm waiting.
Well, I've got a record of it for you, and we'll talk. Shane and I will see how you do on Monday. Yep.
All right, we're getting close to break time here. Give you one more read before we go. At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Make sure to call them, JC. Getting towards the bottom of the hour here, we have Jacob Rudner coming up next. JC, any final thoughts before we go?
Well, my final thoughts is don't let this weekend depress you too badly if it goes the way that everybody thinks. But just remember 1997 when the tables were turned and Georgia did it to Florida as big an underdog as Florida is tomorrow. Have fun if you're going. If you're not going, realize that you've probably got about 3 more chances to do this before Georgia takes the game to Athens if Kirby Smart still is the coach. And the University of Florida needs to spend some money and get its boosters to spend some money. It's a sales job. They lost out on a guy because Miami beat them at the sales table. So I want to see it change. I want to see if Florida can get competitive with these other schools. And right now, I'm not sure yet.
All right. There it is from the man himself. We'll take a break. We'll be right back with Jacob Rudner at 24.
Thanks, Jake.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogra State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
And we're back, joined by Jacob Rudner of 24/7 Sports. Jacob, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Jacob and I are very good friends just because we spent so much time together at the Gainesville Baseball Regional locked inside the press box during a rain delay. So that's how I was able to get him on this morning. Jacob, you are from the West Coast, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, Los Angeles.
So this will be your first Florida Georgia game. How excited are you for that?
I'm looking forward to it. It's definitely going to be cool. I mean, I think the Swamp exceeded my expectations when I got to see that for the first time, and I've heard only, better, crazier things about this. So I'm looking forward to seeing what actually happens once we finally get there.
Yeah, I've had some funny moments. I've seen people making screwdrivers and just literally on the sidewalk outside the stadium. There's probably nothing like this over in LA or California or Arizona, where you covered a little bit of football there too, right?
Oh no, I mean, I covered Arizona State for 3.5 years before I got this job, and I can truthfully tell you I've never seen a college football environment like I've seen here, or even getting to travel to Knoxville and see the game in Tennessee was crazy. I'm certain that this weekend is going to be wild. I've never encountered that. The closest thing that I tell people I've seen to any of these types of environments was BYU. BYU's got a crazy little spot, but it's definitely not of this caliber.
This is you've been in the Holy War? Is that where you're talking about?
I was at BYU versus Arizona State in 2021, and BYU certainly draws a crowd. Good environment for sure, but smaller scale.
Yeah. Well, I think you'll have a good time this weekend in Jacksonville. It's always great. There's going to be a ton of people and a ton of traffic, so be wary of that. But in Jacksonville, they have Whataburger, so that's something you can definitely take advantage of.
There you go.
So, Jacob, obviously, it's not what's the word? Minced words. You work for a recruiting site, and it just seemed about every single insider or recruiting specialist had Cormani McClain, dead pick to go to Florida. and then the last second it changes up. I mean, how does that happen? I know we're dealing with 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, but it just seemed like this kid was a lock.
Yeah, it's tough to pin down, man. I think that let's start with the obvious. I think that we're in a day and age of college football where money and the way that NIL can influence things is going to play a role in the way that recruiting goes down. I think that that's something that has to be considered, and just the way that young kids are going to consider things, that's a factor. How much are you going to be able to help a kid's family? And by the way, these are things that I think are fair for a kid to consider. I think that a lot of people are trying to take that away from maybe Cormani McClain or his family or any other recruit that has to make these kinds of decisions. And in my mind, I don't think that that's fair. I think that this is now part of the process. It's legal, or legal to a degree. I think that there are rules that are certainly being bent across the board, but that's happening everywhere. And these are the kinds of things that change kids' lives and their families' lives. And so that's the first thing. The second is recruiting is crazy. And especially once you get towards the top of a recruiting class, you really never know what's going to happen. And that means down to the time that the kid announces his recruitment publicly, all the way until he actually signs on the dotted line with the university. I think that it is immensely difficult to really put, you lock in a decision and to know what's going to happen. Things can change. You never know who's going to swoop in and say what or do what to influence where that kid's going to go. That being said, last night was a shock. There's no doubt about that. I think that a lot of the recruiting experts who are on the media side would tell you that they were shocked by the decision last night. I think a lot of people had Cormani McClain pegged to end up at Florida. And I would tell you that I think that there are a lot of people on the football side of the recruiting factor here who thought that Cormani McClain was going to end up at Florida as well. It sounds like Alabama's football staff saw him ending up in orange and blue. It sounds like maybe even Miami staff thought until very last minute that he was going to end up in orange and blue. So the general takeaway, Jake, I think is just this is a huge shocker. It certainly is a big win for Miami and a big loss for Florida, but just completely unpredictable in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, such is the age of college football recruiting. But, he's still got a month and a half to really put that pen to paper. Do you think there's, any hope for Florida fans here to hold out?
I don't think that Florida's going to give up. I think that, there's no reason for them to look away. But at the end of the day, do you circle back to this guy? I think that there are other elite cornerbacks. I would also have to say that Florida has a very strong defensive back class already committed. They still rank 8th or 9th now in the country in overall team recruiting after last night. So it's not like Florida doesn't have a strong class, especially at that position. And I don't know that it becomes a necessity to circle after a guy who you kind of thought was going to end up in your class. And at the end of the day, maybe burned you a little bit or surprised you. So to me, I don't know that Florida gets desperate enough to try and really be aggressive in his recruitment. It sounds like he might not take visits anymore as well. So I think that'll be something interesting to kind of follow. But there are other kids. Desmond Ricks is now a 2023 prospect who plays the same position and is also of a very high caliber. And I could see Florida potentially just shifting its focus in that direction.
Yeah, Desmond Ricks, if anybody's wondering, Florida currently contending with the usual suspects: Alabama, LSU, Oklahoma, and Miami. So we'll see what happens with them. Currently by Zach Blostein, I'm going to assume that's how his name is pronounced, has him currently going to Florida State, another in-state rival.
That would be a surprise to me. I don't know. I think Alabama should be considered the front runner for Ricks. LSU is also viewed very highly in that recruitment. We'll see, though. You never know. I think last night we learned that you really, truly never know when it comes to these top kids.
Yeah. And, you mentioned that Alabama kind of expected him to be going to Gainesville, back to Cormani McClain. It's just weird to think that in a race that had Florida, Miami, and Alabama, Miami seemed to be pegged to be the odd man out, with any expected scenario. It's weird that he would go to Miami and not pick Alabama if he wasn't going to Florida, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. But I think it just goes back to you really never know. I think that there are so many factors that come into play now. And, there's a myriad of reasons why he could have picked Miami. I mentioned a couple of them, and at this point, it's kind of really anybody's guess. Again, it was an extremely unpredictable thing. And of the three hats that he had on the table, I think that this was the one that everybody least expected.
Yeah. So moving on to this Georgia game, there is a football game this weekend, if anybody was wondering. I talked about it with JC a little bit. Jacob, what matchup are you most interested to see in Jacksonville?
I'll tell you, I'm excited about the Florida defense in general. We're going to pick the whole group against Georgia's tight ends. I am very curious to see whether or not Florida is able to slow down guys like Brock Bowers and Washington. I just think that they are elite players who run their positions exceptionally well. And Florida struggled against opposing tight ends. They've given up over 370 receiving yards to tight ends this season. Over 130 of those came against Utah alone. And there were a lot of people who said early on in the season that the pair of tight ends that Florida faced against Utah, Dalton Kincaid and Brant Keithy, were the second best tight ends that they'd faced this season, second only to Georgia. And so we saw how that went. I'm curious to see how this Florida defense, which at this point I think is well established, is very inconsistent at best, is going to contend against guys who are bound to play in the NFL at their position. So that's probably the matchup that I find to be the most key between how Florida will perform versus something of Georgia's team. And I think that it has the potential to really make the day long for the Gators.
Yeah. A position that'll be in charge of doing that would be safety play. So going to be, it's probably going to be another hard mentions day for trading.
Look, I think that it's kind of going to be one of those days where it could be a rough day for Florida's defense overall. This is just such a put together team that's, in my opinion, proven time and time again to just do everything at a very high level. Their operation is so clean. And we haven't really seen that yet from Florida. I think that this is kind of everybody knows that this is a building year in Gainesville. And I think that there are a lot of things that still need to be figured out on Florida's side. Obviously defense is one of them. And so, the combination of elite offense that ranks within the top, 15 to 20 within every meaningful offensive category statistically versus a defense that ranks exactly the opposite in most meaningful statistics. It could be a really long day. So I think that it's going to be one of those things where can Florida slow down Georgia's offense enough and get off the field enough times on third down in order to give the offense a chance to compete. We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned with Brock Bowers, one thing I do love about how Georgia uses him is they don't just use him as like a tight end, but it's also not like an Antonio Gates, Jared Waller thing. This dude's running speed sweeps and jet sweeps like from under center and from the shotgun. It's crazy how athletic he is.
They do a phenomenal job. I actually just wrote about this. They do a phenomenal job of utilizing their athletes by getting them the ball quickly. So at the outset of the play, the ball's out. It's fast. They want to get the ball to their playmakers before the defense has a chance to make a play on the ball, and then force their talent guys, their skill position group players, to just make a play with their feet, not without the ball in their hands, though. So you get Bowers the ball in these sweeps and these runs. He's got 3 rushing touchdowns this year. He has run for more touchdowns this season than he has caught. And he is an elite tight end. I think that says something. So this is a team that's creative offensively. It's fast-paced. Stetson Bennett does not take a lot of shots down the field. A lot of their production comes in that short to medium range, and they make their guys make plays, and they're capable of that. So this is going to be a game where Florida's tackling is going to be really important. Their attention to detail, alignment is going to be a huge factor. Again, because a lot of the operation for Georgia likes to kind of happen around that line of scrimmage, out towards the perimeters. They like to do a lot of action. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Georgia gets its playmakers involved and how Florida responds to that.
Yeah, exactly. And with Ruse Ogre State Farm Office, a team dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right. With the right insurance options for you and your family, visit ograinsurance.com or call them at 352-240-1779. This is also, Jacob, an anniversary of sorts. Anthony Richardson's first start came last year against the Georgia Bulldogs, but in a very unceremonious way. Dan Mullen just kind of throwing him out to the wolves, and him having to just kind of figure it out. What have you seen? I don't know if you've spoken to him in media this week, but what have you seen from him? What has he been saying about that?
Anthony Richardson, first of all, we did get to talk to Anthony Richardson, and he did go back to his first start and kind of walked us through what it was like to take the field against such a formidable defense. And he admitted pretty plainly that it was a tough day for him. He had the jitters. He was nervous. He was, I think that part of the struggle for him last year was as much mental as it was physical. And he knows all of this. He said that the approach will have to be different this year. And he's worked on that. So I think that it's a positive that he seems to be acutely aware of the fact that last year was not a good year with regard to playing Georgia. And I think that he really understands why he didn't have a good year against Georgia last year, whether that's because he came to that conclusion by himself or there are members of Florida's coaching staff who are helping him realize that. It seems to have been improved in terms of he knows the mistakes and he knows where he has to be better. Where I'm curious to see if he can actually improve those more in the physical than it is the mental. I think that he will need to be effective in play action this week. I think that Florida will need to get him on his feet, moving, before they really try and open things up through the air. We're talking about the best play action quarterback in college football, according to PFF. There is no quarterback rated higher on play action plays than Anthony Richardson. So in my mind, his success in this game, his ability to maybe kind of get off the hump mentally could come down to how much Florida chooses to use him in play action and just kind of open up the playbook for him. It's a game that you're expected to lose by a lot. 22.5 points is no joke. I think that this is a perfect opportunity for Billy Napier to basically go, let's just go for it and see what happens. Let's be aggressive. Let's get Anthony Richardson out in space, move him out of the pocket, let him run and see what the result is. So I think that this could be a very different year for Anthony Richardson if he's allowed to kind of open things up, especially because it seems as though, from a mental perspective at least, he's aware of how to maybe avoid the struggle a little bit.
Yeah. And, you mentioned using play action as an explosive playmaker. Both of these offenses actually are quite explosive. According to some advanced statistics, about 2 and 3 in terms of percentage of plays that are 15 plus yards. So definitely could see some offense, which is something I don't think either team has really expected out of their teams. And sometimes during this rivalry game, whether it's Georgia the last couple of years just being a grounded pound team, or Florida during the Muschamp years just not being an anything team. So I think we'll have the opportunity to see some really good offense tomorrow if both teams bring it.
I would agree. I think that Florida has to establish its run game early. Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne are two dynamic playmakers. I think that Florida's offensive line has played exceptionally well this year so far. Props to Darnell Stapleton and Rob Sale, who have prepared that unit really well. I think that the key here is going to be, can Florida come out early and establish its rushing attack, get things moving on the ground, and then that opens up everything we just talked about with Anthony Richardson. If you can run the ball, you can use play action, which should open things up down the field. And I've been talking about this week after week, it feels like. Florida must get the ball to its playmakers. We just mentioned Montrell Johnson, Trevor Etienne. They need to see a lot of the lion's share of the rushing attack here. Anthony Richardson should be opened up on the ground. Ricky Pearsall needs to see a consistent flow of targets. Justin Shorter has been fantastic as well. So I think that if Florida is deliberate in getting the ball to its playmakers, with designs that they intentionally get the ball into those guys' hands, that's going to give it its best shot against a really good team.
Yes, exactly. And also we'll tell you about Comfort Temp, but first, this ad read is sponsoring a This Day in Sports moment. So this day in sports, Jacob, Billy Martin named AL Manager of the Year in 1976. The Yankees won the AL East. They were 97-62, and then I know you have a little bit of a San Diego affiliation, so I'll tell you this too. The Cleveland Cavaliers hosted their first ever home game on this date in 1970, and they played the San Diego Rockets, and they lost 110-99. So I'll just, give you a little tidbit for that, little California tidbit for you.
There you go.
But tell you about Comfort Temp. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. Beat the summer heat and schedule your air conditioner's tune-up today, keeping you chill and the Florida heat far away. Comfort Temp Heating and Air. Call us today at 352-376-2366. So you mentioned Ricky Pearsall, and I'm glad you did, because I do think that he probably needs a little bit more involvement in the Gator passing game, especially because the way he operates with the slot, he's more work in the middle of the field now to deal with Georgia's linebackers, which seems like every year they have a stud linebacker. So I think being able to work the middle of the field against this defense is going to be very key, and I think Ricky Pearsall should be the 1B, and 2 in terms of options in that respect. What do you think?
I would agree. I've been super impressed with Ricky Pearsall so far in his Gator career, but I think what catches my eye every time I talk about him is just that number of catches. He's caught 16 passes in 7 games. So he's played in every single game, and he's averaging just over 2 receptions per contest. Not enough. I think that this is a guy who has been explosive. He proves time and time again that he's an exceptionally good route runner. He's got good hands. I believe off the top of my head, he's dropped 2 passes this whole season. And so I just think that this is a guy who could help Florida gain another level of explosiveness if he were to be targeted more often within its passing attack. And we see that in his other numbers. He has 303 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns through the air. And he's rushed for a touchdown, 76-yard scramble on an end around that resulted in a touchdown as well. So I think that this is a guy who really has the potential to create production every time he touches the ball. He does an exceptionally good job of getting open down the field, but he doesn't seem to get the ball enough. I don't know if that's a matter of there not being enough intention in looking his way, or if he's further down on the read list in terms of Anthony Richardson going through his progression. But I would agree with you, Jake. I think he needs the ball more.
Yeah, and look, you mentioned already, you're already a huge underdog. Why not pull out? This is what one of the things I always advocate for. If you're supposed to lose, according to Vegas, and you are severely overmatched according to everybody else, why not pull out every gambit, flim-flam, shenanigan, trick play that you have? Exhaust every single option, because, why not? If you do poorly, nobody expected you to do well anyway.
I mean, imagine going into Jacksonville in a game where, like you said, you're the underdog by a lot. You're playing the number 1 team in the country with serious hopes to repeat as national champion. How big would a win be in that situation? You're 4-3 on the season. You're 1-3 in the SEC. You're kind of playing to just get bowl eligible at this point, which, by the way, I'm not saying is below expectations, or, the coaching staff it's failing to reach some sort of win total. I don't think that. I think that there are a lot of Florida fans who do, and I think that those people are, out of line, in my opinion. I think that Florida's kind of right on pace. A lot of people would have accepted 4-3 at this point in the year, and I think that this is kind of an opportunity to either A, don't get blown out, look competitive through 4 quarters, or B, do something crazy and get a win. I think that it's unlikely, extremely unlikely, in fact. But I would agree with you. I think that if there is an opportunity to kind of pull out all the stops and see what you can do to try and muster something crazy and put something crazy together, this would be the game to do it. It's your Super Bowl. It's your big rival. It's a neutral site game. There's going to be a ton of people there. I would agree. I think this is a huge opportunity to just kind of be aggressive and do what you got to do.
Yeah, you mentioned Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne, 2 really good running backs, and we're talking about pulling all the stops out, but doing something crazy. Will Muschamp did that once. He ran the ball with Kelvin Taylor and Matt Jones 50 combined times, and they combined for almost 400 yards of offense on the ground. They threw the ball 3 times because Treon Harris was their quarterback. So, I mean, look, I think, we talked about getting the playmakers, talked about doing everything you can to win the game. If they come out and run it 7,000 times, I mean, that's just one way to do it. But, we're getting towards the end here, Jacob. What are you most excited about with this game?
I'm just excited to see how Florida is able to compete. I think we spent a lot of time throughout the early portion of this week talking to Billy Napier, who really talked about the improvement Florida tried to make over the bye week. It seemed as though They had a maybe somewhat untraditional format of the bye week in terms of practice intensity. It sounds like the Gators spent the first part of the week running normal week practices, the kind of practices you would see when they had a game on a Saturday, and then kind of tapered off towards the end of the week to give the players a little bit of a rest. And they did that to focus on what Billy Napier called learning how to play winning football, really trying to decipher what contributed to the losses, what contributed to the wins, and eliminating or focusing on those things in order to play cleaner football the rest of the way. And so for me, that means that this is an opportunity to demonstrate improvement. It might not be an opportunity to get a win, and I'm not suggesting that should be it should always be the goal, but I don't think that it's realistic in this scenario. But I do think that this is a really good chance for Florida to show that it made some steps in the areas where it struggled, and whether that's third down defense, get off the field a couple more times, whether that's offensively, let's see a couple more explosive plays as we get into the second half when Florida has really struggled offensively. A lot of Florida's production has come in the first half. Anthony Richardson, I believe it's 6 of his 7 interceptions this season have come after halftime. Let's see him protect the ball a little bit better. I think that this is a really good opportunity to do that, improve, show that there is a constant process of growth for this team, and that these are things that are constantly being in consideration. Do that. Don't get blown out. I think it would be considered a success.
Yeah, the good old measuring stick game. Well, I'd like to thank Jacob Rudner for joining us today. JC, always was a pleasure. Jacob, enjoy your first Florida-Georgia game. Safe travels. Everybody enjoy your weekend and have a happy Halloween.